David checked his work phone for the third time that morning while standing in the school parking lot watching his daughter climb into the bus. Message was still there, glowing on his screen like it was mocking him. Executive Florcio computer. Down urgent, he sighed and ran his hand through his hair that desperately needed a cut, but there was never enough time for things like that. Anymore, his daughter Mia had turned around in her seat near the window and was waving at him with that gap-toothed smile that made his heart hurt in the best way possible. He waved back, making a goofy face that made her laugh even though the other kids probably thought her dad was weird. The bus pulled away and David stood there for a moment longer than necessary. These drop-off moments were getting harder, not easier. Every time he watched that yellow bus disappear around the corner, he felt like he was sending away the only good thing left in his life. 3 years. It had been 3 years since Lisa died, and some days it felt like yesterday. In other days, it felt like a lifetime ago. He shook his head and headed back to his old beat-up Honda that had seen better days. The check engine light had been on for 2 months, but as long as it got him to work and back to pick up Mia, he figured it was doing its job. The drive to Hartwell Industries took 40 minutes in traffic, and he used the time to mentally prepare himself. Executive floor meant dealing with people who thought their problems were the most important thing in the world. It meant being invisible until something broke, and then being blamed when things went wrong. He didn't mind most of his job. Fixing computers was easy compared to fixing everything else in his life, but the executive floor always made him nervous. Those people lived in a different world, a world of expensive suits and corner offices and assistants who scheduled their bathroom breaks. David pulled into the employee parking lot way out in the far corner where the lower-level staff had to park. He grabbed his toolkit from the trunk and headed inside. The security guard, Raphael, gave him a nod as he scanned his badge. "You got the CEO today," here Raphael said with a sympathetic look. "Good luck with that one." David managed a small smile. "She that badge?" Raphael raised his eyebrows. "Let's just say I've seen grown men come out of her office looking like they want a crisis. Queen doesn't even begin to cover it great," David thought as he headed to the elevator. Just what he needed on a Wednesday morning. The elevator ride to the 20th floor felt longer than usual. He watched the numbers climb and tried to remember the last time had been this high up in the building. Maybe never. His department was in the basement next to the server room, where it was always too cold and smelled like old coffee and electrical equipment. The executive floor was different. The doors opened and he stepped into what looked like a hotel lobby. Everything was white and chrome and glass. There were actual plants, not the fake ones they had downstairs. The carpet was so thick his footsteps made no sound. A young woman sat at a massive desk that probably cost more than his car. She looked up with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You must be," their tone suggested that being ID was somehow unfortunate. "I'm here to fix the CEO's computer," David said, trying to sound professional. She nodded and stood up. "Follow me, please." "Be quiet, she is on an important call." They walked down a hallway lined with abstract art that David didn't understand. His toolkit felt heavy and cheap in his hand. Everything up here made him aware of how worn his work polo was, how his khakis had a small stain from where Mia had spilled juice that morning. The assistant stopped at a large door made of frosted glass. She knocked once softly, then opened it and gestured for him to enter. David stepped inside and forgot to breathe for a second. The office was huge. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the entire city. Spread out below, there was a sitting area with a white leather couch, a bookshelf filled with books that actually looked redanned. Behind a desk that could double as a landing pad sat the CEO, Victoria Hartwell. He knew her name from the company emails and the portrait in the lobby, but seeing her in person was different. She was younger than he expected, maybe late 30s, with dark hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She wore a black suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent, and she was on the phone. Her back was to him. She was talking in a low voice that sounded frustrated. "Don't care what the board thinks. We are not pushing back the launch date." A way to make it work. She ended the call and turned around. Her eyes swept over him once, taking in his toolkit and his worn polo and his nervous posture. "She didn't smile. Computer," she said, pointing to the laptop on her desk. "Quant turn on. Tried everything." David nodded and moved toward the desk. His hands were steady, even though his nerves weren't. This was his territory. Computers he could handle. He set his toolkit down and reached for the laptops he did. Victoria turned back to her phone, scrolling through what looked like 100 unread messages. She completely dismissed him like he was part of the furniture. David was used to this. He opened the laptop and pressed the power button. Nothing. He tried the usual things, checked if it was plugged in properly, looked for any obvious signs of damage. The laptop was expensive, top of the line, probably replaced every year, whether it needed it or not. Pulled out his diagnostic cable and connected it to his own device. Its screen lit up, showing him what was happening under the hood: corrupted system files. Kind of malware that had wormed its way in, probably from an email attachment or a sketchy website. He glanced up at Victoria, who was now typing furiously on her phone. Her jaw was clenched. "Excuse me," he said quietly. She looked up with an expression that could freeze water. "What I need to run a deep diagnostic hit. Might take 30 minutes maybe, and hurry, can come back if you need to use the office." She waved her hand. Dismissive aliased. "Do Edie have calls?" She moved to the sitting area with her phone, and David got to work. He was good at this. Really good. Computers made sense. They followed rules. If something was broken, there was usually a logical reason and a logical fix. Not like life, not like trying to explain to an 8-year-old why her mom wasn't coming back, not like filling out school permission slips and remembering to pack lunches and staying awake till midnight doing laundry, because that's the only time he had his fingers moved across the keyboard, running scans and clearing out the infected files. Malware was nasty, but not impossible to remove. As he worked, the screen flickered and the desktop appeared for just a moment before going back to the diagnostic screen. But in that moment, David saw something that made him pause. Wallpaper. It was a photo of a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old. She had light brown hair and 2 braids, and she was wearing a purple backpack. Her smile was huge. Kind of smile that kids have when they don't know yet that the world can be hard. David felt something twist in his chest. He hadn't expected that everyone in the office talked about Victoria Hartwell like she was some kind of Robital business. No personal life, married to her job, but that photo, that was someone's daughter. He kept working, trying not to think about it, trying not to think about how his own phone wallpaper was a picture of Mia from last summer at the beach. She had been building a sandcastle, and the sun was setting behind her, and she looked so happy. He had taken about 50 photos that day, trying to capture that happiness, like if he could just get the right angle, he could keep her that way forever. The diagnostic finished. He started the repair process, watching the progress bar slowly fill. Victoria was still on the phone. Her voice had that sharp edge that people get when they're trying very hard not to lose their temper. "I understand your concerns, but we have contractual obligations. This isn't optional." David wondered what it was like to have problems like that. Contract obligations, board meetings. His problems were more like figuring out how to afford new shoes for Mia because she was growing so fast. Okay. How to explain why they couldn't go on vacation like her friend's family did. The repair finished. He ran one more check to make sure everything was working properly. The desktop loaded, and there was that photo again, the little girl with the purple backpack. He couldn't help but stare at it for a second. Something about her smile reminded him of Mia. That same kind of pure joy. He was about to close the laptop when Victoria ended her call and walked back over her heels, clicked on the floor, each step precise and measured. She stopped next to him and looked at the screen. David watched her face change just for a second. Ice Queen mask slipped, and something else showed through. Something that looked almost like pain. "You saw the picture," she said. It wasn't a question. Her voice was different. Now Quatero, almost fragile. David nodded. He wasn't sure what else to do. He started to apologize, started to say he didn't mean to pry, but Victoria held up her hand. She sat down in her chair, and for the first time since he walked in, she really looked at him, not through him, not past him, at him. "Does your daughter still ask about her mother?" The question hit David like a physical thing. He actually took a step back, his mouth open, but no words came out. How did she know? How could she possibly know he had a daughter, that his wife was gone? Victoria must have seen the confusion on his face, because she continued. "Your assistant mentioned it once in the elevator. A few months ago, she was talking about how you always leave exactly at 3 to pick up your daughter from school. How you never work late because you don't have anyone else." David felt exposed, like someone had opened up his chest and was looking at all The messy parts he tried to keep hidden. He didn't know what to say. Victoria was looking at the photo on her screen, though. Little girl with the purple backpack. That's my niece, Victoria said. Her name is Lily. My sister died 2 years ago. David felt the air leave his lungs. I'm sorry, he managed to say. Words felt inadequate. They always did. Victoria nodded. She took a breath, and David could see her trying to hold herself together and fighting. For custody, she said, have been for 18 months. Court case after court case. Her father, my brother-in-law, he doesn't think him fit to raise her. David didn't know what to say to that. This wasn't what he expected when he came up here to fix a computer. This wasn't part of his job description, but something in Victoria's voice, something in the way she was looking at that photo, it reminded him of himself, of all those nights sitting alone after Mia went to bed, wondering if he was doing any of it right, he says. I'm too focused on work, Victoria continued. She was talking more to herself than to David. Now that I don't know how to be warm, how to be maternal. Lawyers keep asking me questions about parenting, and I don't have good answers because I've never done it. I've never had to think about bedtimes and homework and making someone feel loved. David pulled out his phone before he could overthink it. His screensaver was the photo from the beach, Mia, with her sandcastle. He turned it so Victoria could see this. Is Mia, he said. She's at. Victoria looked at the photo and something in her face softened. She looks happy, she is, David said. Most of the time. It's not because imperfect at this, trust me. I'm not half the time. I have no idea what I'm doing. Victoria looked up at him, then how? David shrugged. I just show up every day, even when I feel like I'm failing. I show up and I try. Sometimes that's all you can do. There was a long silence outside the window. The city stretched out below them, people going about their days, having their own struggles, fighting their own battles. Victoria stood up. She looked at David with an expression he couldn't quite read. What she started, then stopped. Would you be willing to talk again? Not about computers, about this, about parenting. David should have said no, should have made an excuse. This wasn't his business. He had enough problems of his own, but he heard himself saying yes because he remembered those early days after Lisa died, when he felt like he was drowning, when he would have given anything for someone to tell him it was okay not to have all the answers. They exchanged numbers. Victoria thanked him for fixing the computer. Her voice had gone back to professional, but there was something different in her eyes now. Something less cold. As David packed up his toolkit and headed back to the elevator, he felt strange, like something had shifted. He didn't know what he had just agreed to. Didn't know if he could actually help this woman who lived in a world so different from his. But as the elevator descended back down to reality, he thought about that little girl in the photo, Lily, with her purple backpack and her bright smile, and thought about how every kid deserves someone who would fight for them, even if that someone didn't know what they were doing, even if they were scared, maybe. Especially then. The coffee shop was almost empty at 6 in the morning. David sat at a corner table with his second cup already going cold in front of him. He kept checking his phone, wondering if Victoria would actually show up. This whole thing felt surreal. 3 days had passed since that conversation in her office, and he had almost convinced himself it was some kind of weird dream. But then she had texted him just a simple message asking if they could meet before work, somewhere neutral, somewhere they could talk. He had said yes, even though Mia had given him a suspicious look when he explained he had to leave earlier than usual. That morning his neighbor Mrs. Chen had agreed to handle the morning drop-off, and Mia had hugged him extra tight, like she knew something was different. The door opened and Victoria walked in. Shh. Looked strange out of her office. She was still wearing expensive clothes, but she had a coat on and her hair wasn't pulled back as tight. She looked almost normal, almost like someone you might see in line at the grocery store. She spotted him and walked over. Her movements were careful, hesitant, not like the confident CEO. Hill strode around her office like she owned the world, which technically she kind of did. Can I get you coffee? David asked, standing up. Victoria shook her head and sat down. I have about 40 minutes before my first meeting, she said. I wasn't sure you'd come. David sat back down. I wasn't sure you actually wanted me to. Victoria smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She pulled out her phone, and David noticed her hands were shaking slightly. Had a supervised visit with Lily yesterday. She said court ordered 2 hours every Wednesday. An observer sits there the whole time writing notes about everything I do, every word I sits. It's like taking a test you didn't study for, except the grade determines whether you get to have a family. David felt his chest tightened. Knew about tests, he wasn't prepared for life. Had given him plenty of those. How did it go? Not great. Victoria set her phone down, and David could see the screen. It was a photo of her and Lily. They were sitting at a table with coloring books between them. Victoria looked stiff and comfortable, like she didn't know what to do with her hands-eye broad activities. Victoria continued educational ones books about science and matho. Thought she might enjoy learning. David tried not to win. Sanchez wanted to play dolls. Victoria said the word dolls like it was a foreign concept. I didn't know how to play dolls. I sat there watching her create these elaborate stories, and I had no idea how to participate. Observer wrote everything down. I could see her making notes, probably about how I can't even play with a child. There was a long pause outside the window. People were starting to fill the streets. Morning commuters grabbing coffee before another day of work. David thought about all the mornings he and Mia had breakfast together, how she talked nonstop about her dreams from the night before, about what she wanted to be when she grew up. How he usually was only half listening because he was trying to pack lunches and find matching socks and mentally prepare for his own day. What did you do? David asked Quinn. She wanted to play dolls. I tried. Victoria said. Really? Dee Dee picked up a doll, and I asked her what we were supposed to don't. Lily looked at me like I was crazy. She said we're pretending like that, explained everything. And I realized I don't know how to pretend anymore. I don't know when I lost that. David wrapped his hands around his cold coffee cup. When Lisa got sick, he said slowly. Mia was 5. She was old enough to know something was wrong, but too young to really understand. I tried to keep things normal, but I didn't know how I would sit with her and try to play, but my mind was always somewhere else, thinking about medical bills, about how much time we had left, about what would happen after. Victoria was listening, really listening, not the way people usually did when you talked about hard things, not with that uncomfortable sympathy that made you want to stop talking. What change? She asked. David thought about E.T. Don't think anything changed all at once. It's one thing's one day I realized Mia had stopped asking me to play. She would just sit by herself with her toys, and I felt like the worst father in the world. So I sat down next to her, and I asked her to teach me her game. Her face lit up, and for 20 minutes I pretended to be a talking horse or whatever she needed me to be, and it was terrible. I felt ridiculous, but she was happy, and that was what mattered. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Court date is in 6 weeks, she finally said. Final hearing. After that they decide either I get custody or she. Trailed off. David could fill in the rest. Her brother-in-law would get full custody. Lee would grow up without her aunt, without the last connection to her mother. It's not about being perfect, David said. No, you probably have lawyers telling you all kinds of things about what you need to do, what you need to say, but kids don't need perfect, they need present. Victoria looked down at her hands. I don't know how to be present. My whole life has been about the next goal, the next achievement. I built this company from nothing. I work 80 hours a week because if I stop moving, I might realize how empty everything is. David understood that after Lisa died, he had thrown himself into work, into being everything for me, into filling every moment with tasks and responsibilities so he didn't have to feel the giant hole in his life. What does now, Lily? Like he asked. Victoria blinked at the question. What does she like? What makes her happy? What does she talk about? Her dolls, about school, about her friend who has a trampoline, normal kid things. Then start there, David said. Next visit, ask her about her friend. Ask her what games they play. Ask her what her favorite thing about school is. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to care about her answers. Victoria pulled out her phone again. She opened a notes app and started typing. David almost laughed. Of course she would take notes, but he could see she was trying. That had to count for something. Tell me about Mia, Victoria said after she had finished typing. What is she like? David felt himself smile the way he always did when he thought about his daughter. She's stubborn, he said. Gets that from her mom. She wants to be a veterinarian, but only for cats, because she says dogs are too hyper. She refuses to eat anything green unless I convince her it's actually a different color. She still sleeps with the stuffed elephant her mom gave her when she was born. She talks in her sleep. She gives the best hugs. She makes me laugh even on the worst days. Victoria was watching him. There's something in your voice when you talk about her. David nodded. She saved my life after Lisa died. He stopped. He didn't. Usually talk about this. I was in a dark place. Really dark. There were mornings I didn't want to get out of bed. Didn't want to face another day, but Mia needed breakfast. She needed to get to school. She needed someone to be okay. Even when I wasn't so, I pretended I got up and I made pancakes, and eventually the pretending turned into something real. Victoria was Still, how long did it take the pretending to feel real? David shrugged, still working on it. Some days are better than others. Last week Mia had a project due and I completely forgot about it. We stayed up until midnight building a model of the solar system. Out of foam balls, she was crying because she was tired. I was frustrated because I felt like I was failing her again, but we finished at 10. In the morning when I dropped her off, she hugged me and said I was the best dad even, though I clearly wasn't. Victoria looked like she might cry. Don't know if I can do this, she said. Quietly, I have 6 weeks to convince a judge that I can be what Lily needs. I can't even convince myself. David leaned forward. Do you love her? Of course, Victoria said immediately. She's all I have left of my sister. She's family. Then you start there, David said. Everything else you can figure out. The parenting books and the routine and the right things to Sonona that matters if she doesn't know you care. Talked for another 20 minutes, Victoria. Asked questions about bedtime routines and school activities and how to talk to kids without sounding like you were conducting a business. Meeting David answered as best he could, admitting all the things he still didn't know, all the ways he still felt inadequate. When Victoria finally stood to leave, she paused. Thank you, she said, for this, for being honest. Everyone else keeps telling me what I want to hear. My lawyers say I have a strong case. My friends say I'm doing great, but you're telling me the truth. David stood toe. Don't know if helping. Honestly, I barely have my own life together most days. I'm just trying to survive until bedtime. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that kids can handle a lot. They can handle imperfect. They can handle a messy. What they can't handle is feeling like they don't matter. Make sure Lily knows she matters more than anything. Victoria nodded. She looked like she wanted to say something else, but her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face shifted back into CEO mode. I have to go, she said. Can we do this again same time next week? David agreed. He watched her leave, watched her transform back into the Ice Queen as she walked out the door. Her shoulders straightened, her pace quickened by. The time she reached the sidewalk, she was just another business person rushing to their next meeting, but David had seen something different. Had seen the scared woman underneath all that armor. Someone who was fighting for something that mattered. He gathered his things and headed to his own job, the basement, with the server room and the endless IT tickets, but his mind was elsewhere. He was thinking about Victoria and Lilia, about second chances and broken families, trying to put themselves back together. When he got home that evening, Mia was waiting for him. She had already finished her homework and was watching cartoons. How was your morning meeting? She asked. She was too perceptive. For an 8-year-old, it was good, David said. Helping someone. Mia looked up at him like, how you help people fix their computers, sort of. David sat down next to her on the couch. More like how Grandma helped us after Mom died, remember? How she taught me to do your hair? How she showed me which foods you liked? How she was patient even when I messed up. Mia nodded. Diz someone else sick? No, honey. David pulled her close. Someone else is just trying to figure out how to be a good parent like Mia. Snuggled into his side. You're already a good parent, Dad. You just worry too much. David smiled into her hair. When did you get so smart? Shay giggled. I was born this way. Obviously, they sat there watching cartoons, and David felt that familiar ache in his chest, the one that came from loving someone so much it hurt, the one that came from knowing how fragile everything was, how quickly it could all fall apart. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Thank you, Agani. Have my visit with Lily tomorrow. Going to ask her about her friend with the trampoline. David typed back, let me know how it goes. He put his phone away and focused on Mia, her running commentary about the cartoon and the weight of her leaning against him in this moment right here, because that was all any of them had. Moments. The choice to show up for them. The next morning, David got another text. It was longer this time. I asked Lily about her friend. She talked for 20 minutes straight about trampoline games and sleepovers and some elaborate game involving unicorns. I didn't understand half of it, but I listened, or Lee listened on to the End, she said. Can you come to my school play next month? The Observer wrote that down too, but Lily smiled at merely smiled I. Think maybe? I did something right. David read the message twice. He could picture Victoria in that supervised visit room probably. Still sitting too straight, probably still uncomfortable, but trying that was what mattered you. He texted back, keep going. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a routine coffee every Wednesday morning before work. Victoria would tell him about her visits. With Lily about the small victories and the crushing defeats, about the court proceedings and the lawyers and the impossible pressure of having. Every interaction evaluated. David would listen and share his own stories about Mia struggling with math. Homework, about forgetting to sign permission slips, about the time he sent her to school with 2 different shoes because they were rushing. They talked about the hard parts of parenting, the parts people didn't put in Instagram posts, the guilt, the fear, the constant feeling of not being enough. And slowly, so slowly, David almost didn't notice, Victoria started to change. She left work at 6:02 video call. Lily, during dinner, she learned to play the doll games. She bought books that Lily actually wanted to read, not educational ones, fun ones. She made mistakes, lots of them, but she was learning, and Lily was starting to trust her. One Wednesday, Victoria showed up to coffee with dark circles under her eyes, but she was smiling. Lily asked if she could call me Mom. She said, just like that. We were playing, and she said, can I call you Mom instead of Aunt Victoria? I didn't know what to say. The God Observer was watching. Everything felt like a test. What did you say? David asked. I said she could call me whatever felt right to her, and she said, Mom feels right because you're taking care of me like a mom would. Victoria voice cracked. I excused myself to the bathroom and cried for 10 minutes. Observer probably thought I was having a breakdown. Maybe I was, but it was everything. David understood. He remembered the first time Mia called him Daddy after Lisa died. Not Dad, Daddy. That way she used to say it when she was little, like he was her whole world. It had broken something in him and fixed something at the same time. The court date is in 2 weeks, Victoria said. Terrified you should be. David said being a parent is terrifying every single day. But you're ready. Victoria shook her head. I don't feel ready. I still don't know what I'm doing. None of us do. David said we just love them and hope that's enough. They sat in silence for a moment. The coffee shop was busier now. People coming and going, everyone carrying their own invisible burdens. Do you ever wonder if Lisa would be proud? Victoria asked suddenly. Of how you're raising Mia. David had thought about that question 1,000 times. Every day, he said, honestly, and I don't know. I hope so, but I also know I can't parent the way Lisa would have. I can only parent the way I know how and hope that my way is good enough. Victoria nodded slowly. My sister was the fun one. She was creative and spontaneous, and she made everything feel like an adventure. None of those things. I'm structured and serious, and I schedule everything, but you love Lily. David sedoned. You're here, you're fighting for her. That's what matters too. Weeks later, David sat in his car outside the courthouse. He wasn't supposed to be there. Victoria hadn't asked him to come, but somehow it felt important to be there, to be a reminder that she wasn't alone. His phone rang. It was Victoria. Where are you? She sounded panicked. In the parking lot. David said, No, you didn't ask me to come, but I thought, can you come inside, please? I need someone here who gets it. David was already getting out of his car. He found Victoria in the hallway outside the courtroom. She was wearing a navy suit. Her hair was perfect, but her hands were shaking. He walks in there with his lawyer and his perfect little family story, she said. And I walk in. Alana, it looks bad. David, you have a whole company full of people who respect you, employees who depend on you. That shows stability, that shows responsibility, but it doesn't show love. Victoria Sadit doesn't show that I can make Lily happy. They want to see warmth, family connection. How do I show them that when I've spent my whole life building walls? You show them the same thing you've been showing Lily. David said, you show up, you tell the truth. You let them see that you're scared, but you're trying anyway. That's all any parent can do. The courtroom doors opened. Bailiff called Victoria's name. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, transformed back into the CEO. Wait, David said. She turned. Stay scared, he said. Let them see you're human. Let them see you care enough to be terrified. That's not weakness. That's... La Victoria looked at him for a long moment, then she nodded and walked into the courtroom. David found a seat in the back. He watched as lawyers presented their cases as character witnesses, spoke as evidence was submitted in. Then Victoria took the stand. She answered questions about her work schedule, about her home, about her plans for Lily's future. She was poised, professional. Perfect. David could see the judge making notes. Could see the skepticism. Then Victoria's lawyer stirred why she wanted custody. Victoria opened her mouth to give what was probably a prepared answer, but she stopped. She looked at Lily sitting in the front, Rowan. Something in her face changed. Because she's my sister's daughter, Victoria said, her voice not quite steady. And because I love Harry. No, don't show it the way other people might. I'm not good at spontaneous fun or making up games. I schedule playtime in my calendar. I research parenting techniques. Like their business strategies, I probably overthink every interaction we have, but I love her and I show up every visit, every video call, every time she's scared or sad or needs someone. There maybe. Am not the parent my sister would have been. Maybe am too structured or too serious, but am learning, am trying, and I will never stop trying to be what Lily needs. The courtroom was quiet. David could see tears on Victoria's face. She wasn't hiding them. The judge asked her one more question. If you get custody, what will be different? Everything, Victoria said immediately. And nothing. It'll still work. It'll still be who I am, but Lily will always come first. Stalways, I will show up to every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every moment that matters. They'll learn to play dolls and make pillow forts and do all the things I never thought I could do, because that's what love is, showing up even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. David watched the judge, watched her face, and he hoped that Victoria had done enough, that love would be enough. The hearing ended. The judge said she'd make her decision within a week. Victoria walked out of the courtroom. Looking exhausted, she found David in the hallway. Don't know if it was enough. Shay, we're honest. David said that's all you could do. They stood there in the courthouse hallway, two people who had found each other in the most unexpected way, had helped each other through the hardest parts of life, and David realized something. He wasn't just helping Victoria anymore. She was helping him, reminding him why he fought so hard every day, why showing up mattered, why love was always worth the risk of it. When you were terrified, especially then. The call came on a Friday afternoon while David was fixing a printer on the third floor. His phone vibrated in his pocket, and when he saw Victoria's name on the screen, his heart started racing. He excused himself and stepped into an empty conference room. Hello, I got custody. Victoria's voice was shaking. The judge ruled this morning primary custody moves in next Friday. David felt his chest expand with relief. Victoria, that's amazing. Congratulations. There was a pause. Then he heard her crying, not sad crying, the kind of crying that happens when you've been holding your breath for so long. You forgot what it felt like to breathe. I'm terrified, she said through the tears. What? If I mess this up, what? If she's miserable, what? If the court made a mistake? David smiled. Welcome to parenting. He said that fear never goes away. You just learn to work with. If they talked for a few more minutes, Victoria had a million questions about everything from bedroom, furniture, to school registration, to what an 8-year-old ate for breakfast. David answered what he could and promised to help with the rest. When he got home that evening, Mia was doing homework at the kitchen table. She looked up when he walked in. You look happy, she said. I am. David sat down across from her. Remember that friend I was helping, the one who was trying to become a parent? Mia nodded. She gets to keep her daughter or her niece. She gets to be a mom. Now that's good, Mia said. Then after a pause, she added, is she scared? Very scared. Why be? 'Cause loving someone is scary, David said. When you care about someone that much, you worry about doing everything wrong. Mia considered this. Are you scared about me every day? David admitted, but it's worth it. Mia smiled and went back to her homework. A few minutes later, she looked up again. Can we help her, like with moving in and stuff? We know how hard it is to be a new family. David felt something warm spread through his chest. His daughter, 8 years old and already understanding what it meant to show up for people. Yeah, he said, I think we can do that. The following Friday, David and Mia showed up at Victoria's house. With boxes of pasta and a welcome home banner that Mia had spent all week making. The house was in one of those neighborhoods where every yard was perfect and every house looked like it belonged in a magazine. David felt out of place pulling up in his old Honda, but Mia was already out of the car, clutching the banner. Her excitement overriding any nervousness. Victoria answered the door, and David barely recognized her. She was wearing jeans, actual jeans, a sweater that looked soft instead of sharp. Her hair was down. She looked younger, less like a CEO, and more like someone trying very hard to figure out how to be a mom. Mia thrust the banner at her. We made this for when Lily gets here. Welcome home. Mit sparkly. Victoria took the banner and her eyes got wet. This is perfect, thank you. They went inside and David tried not to stare. The house was beautiful, but it felt more like a museum than a home. Everything was white and clean and expensive looking. Not a single thing out of place. Victoria's bedroom is upstairs, Victoria said, following his gaze. I decorated it based on what she told me. She liked purple and butterflies. I might have overdone it. Can I see Mia asked? Victoria nodded, and Mia ran upstairs. The two adults stood in the pristine living room. Wouldn't have to come, Victoria said, but I'm glad you did. Not sure I could do this alone. You're not alone, David, said Dan. You're going to be great. What if she's unhappy? What if she misses her dad? What if she hates it? Here David looked around at the perfect house. Expensive furniture, the complete lack of anything child-related except for the bedroom upstairs. She might be unhappy at first, he said, honestly moving. Is hard. Change is hard, but you give her time, you give her patience, you let her feel what she feels. Victoria nodded. She was twisting her hands together, a nervous gesture David had never seen from her before. When does she arrive? To hours. Her father is dropping her off at 3. Social worker will be here to oversee the transition. Then she paused. Will you stay until she gets here? I don't want to be alone with my thoughts. So they waited. David helped Victoria check Lily's room for the 5th time, making sure everything was perfect. Mia tested out the bed and declared it the comfiest thing ever. They hung the welcome home banner in the living room. Victoria made tea, but didn't drink it. She kept checking her phone, pacing, straightening things that were already straight. At one point, she turned to David. What if I can't do this? What if I'm not capable of being what she needs? David remembered standing in Mia's room the night Lisa died, looking at his sleeping daughter, thinking the exact same thing. Love her, he said. That's the capability that matters most. Most everything else you learn as you go. The doorbell rang at exactly 3 o'clock. Victoria froze. David could see panic flash across her face. Do you want me to get Eth asked. No. Victoria straightened her shoulders. This is my job now. Open the door. Rayman stood there with Lily. He was tall, with tired eyes and the look of someone who had been fighting a losing battle for too long. Lily was holding a backpack and a stuffed animal. She looked small. The barker stood behind them with a clipboard. Victoria knelt down to Lily's level. Hi, sweetheart. Her voice was gentle. Are you ready? Lily nodded but didn't say anything. Her father handed over a bag of clothes. The social worker went over some final paperwork. Whole thing felt cold, transactional, like they were exchanging property instead of a child. Then the father left just like that. He hugged Lily, told her to be good, and walked away. David could see Lily watching through the window as his car pulled away. Her face was blank, but her knuckles were white around her stuffed animal. Victoria stood there looking lost, not knowing what to do. Mia saved the moment. She walked over to Lily with the confidence only 8-year-olds have. Hi, Mia, I like your bunny. What's its name? Lily looked at her. Mr. Hoppers, that's a good name. Mia said seriously. I have an elephant named Peanut. Want to see your room? I tested the bed. It's really bouncy. Lily glanced at Victoria, who nodded encouragingly. 2 girls went upstairs, leaving the adults alone with the social worker. The social worker did a quick check of the house, asked Victoria some questions, reminded her about the follow-up visits. Then she left. To Victoria stood in her living room, looking overwhelmed. She did it, David said quietly. She said yes to seeing her room. That's a start. Victoria nodded. She looked like she might cry. Again, go up there. David said sit with them. You don't have to do anything, just be present. Victoria went upstairs. David could hear the girls talking, Mia showing Lily all the things in the room. Lily responding in quiet one-word answers, but she was responding. That was something. An hour later, David found all three of them in Lily's room. Mia and Lily were playing with dolls. Victoria was sitting awkwardly on the floor trying to follow along. She looked up when David appeared in the doorway. Gave her a thumbs up. She smiled. It was a real smile, not the corporate one, not the trying to impress anyone one, just a genuine expression of someone who was exactly where they wanted to be. Even if they had no idea what they were doing. We should probably go, David said. Let you guys get settled, Mia protested. But Lily looked relieved to many new things at once. It was overwhelming. They needed time alone. Victoria walked them to the door. Thank you, Shay said, for everything. This is just the beginning. David said, the hard part comes next. Home. Victoria looked back toward the stairs. But I'm ready. As ready as it'll ever be. Over the next few weeks, David checked in regularly. Text messages, mostly how's it going, updates on small victories and large struggles. Lily cried every night for her dad. For the first week, she refused to eat anything Victoria cooked. She was quiet and withdrawn at school. But slowly things started to shift. Victoria learned that Lily liked her sandwiches cut diagonally, not straight across. Figured out that bedtime went better with 3 stories instead of 1. She started leaving work at 5 instead of 7. Put Lily's artwork on the refrigerator. She made mistakes. Lots of them. She forgot about pajama day at school. She bought the wrong kind of juice boxes. She scheduled a dentist appointment during Lily's favorite TV show, and there were tears, but she kept showing up, kept trying, kept learning. One Saturday afternoon, Victoria called David, not a text, an actual call. Can you come over? She sounded strange. Is everything okay? Need to show you something. When David and Mia arrived, Victoria met them at the door. She looked disheveled. Her hair was messy. There was paint on her shirt. Come see, she said, leading them to the living room. Though perfect, pristine living room was destroyed in the best possible way. There were blankets draped over furniture, creating a massive 4 pillows. Everywhere, crayons and coloring books spread across the coffee table, a half-eaten pizza on paper plates, and in the middle of it all, Lily laughing, actually laughing at something on the TV. Victoria stood there looking proud and terrified and exhausted. Made a fort, Victoria said. She asked if we could build one. I said yes. We used every blanket in the house. I have no idea how to put it back together. David started laughing. He couldn't help it. What? Victoria asked. This is, he gestured at the chaos. This is perfect. This is what a home looks like. Victoria looked around at her destroyed living room. Really? Because it looks like a disaster. Mia was already crawling into the fort. Lily looked up, surprised but not upset. Can I come in? Mia asked. Lily nodded. The 2 girls disappeared into the blanket structured. David and Victoria sat on the one clear spot on the couch. Don't know what I'm doing, Victoria said, but for the first time. I don't think I need to. Lily is happy right now in this moment. That's all that matters. They sat there watching the fort, listening to the girls giggle, and David realized something had shifted between him and Victoria too. It wasn't just about helping her anymore. Wasn't just about parenting advice and support. They had become friends. Real friends, of the kind who saw each other at their worst and stuck around anyway. Mia invited Lily to her soccer game the next week. Victoria came. She stood on the sidelines in jeans and a company t-shirt, looking completely out of her element. But when Mia scored, she cheered, not politely, actually. Cheered loud and embarrassing and completely genuine. Lily looked up at her with wide eyes. Then she smiled. After the game, the girls ran around the field, burning off energy. Victoria and David sat on the bleachers. I never thought I could have this, Victoria said. With this, she gestured at Lily. Running with Mia family knows KO, someone else's happiness being more important than my own. It's terrifying. David augured every single day. But would you go back to before, when it was just you and your work? Victoria didn't hesitate. Never, not for anything. They watched the girls, 2 kids who had both lost mothers, who both knew what it was like when the world fell apart, or who were finding joy anyway, finding friendship, finding reasons to laugh. If you know, David said slowly, my birthday is next month. We're doing a small party. Just a few friends, pizza and cake. Nothing fancy. Victoria's face lit up. Can we come? Lee would love that. Of course, David said. Then he paused. And maybe after, if you're not busy, we could all get dinner like a double. He stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence. Because what was this? This thing growing between them. This feeling that maybe they were building something more than friendship. Victoria looked at him, her expression soft. Sounds nice, she said drearily. Nice, Mia. Came running over sweaty and happy. Dad, can Lily come over sometime? We want to build a spaceship out of cardboard boxes, sure, David said without even thinking about logistics. Victoria laughed. Look at you being spontaneous. It's terrifying, David admitted, but I'm learning from the best. The four of them walked to the parking lot together, Mia and Lily holding hands, chattering about their spaceship plans. David, Victoria following behind. Not quite touching, but close enough to feel the possibility. This wasn't what David expected when he went to fix a computer. That day wasn't what he thought his life would look like 3 years after losing his wife. But standing there in the parking lot, watching his daughter make a new friend, watching Victoria become the mother she never thought she could be, he realized something. Life didn't ask permission before it changed. Didn't wait until you were ready. It just happened. You could either fight it, or you could show up to the best you could, love the people in front of you, and hope. That was enough. That night, after Mia was asleep, David sat on his back porch with a cup of coffee. His phone buzzed. Message from Victoria. Thank you for today, for every day. I don't say it enough, but you've changed my life. If you showed me what it means to be present, to be enough. David typed back, you changed mine to you. Reminded me that it's okay to want Moretto hope for more than just surviving. Another message came through a same time next week. Coffee before work. David smiled. He had started meeting Victoria for coffee to help her teach her about parenting, but somewhere along the way, it had become the best part of his week. Same time next week, he replied, but maybe we could do dinner too. On Saturday, all four of us, the three dots, appeared as Victoria typed, then disappeared, then appeared again. You asking me on a date? David hesitated, then typed his that okay. The response came quickly. More than okay, I've been hoping you would. David set his phone down. His heart was racing. He felt like a teenager, nervous and excited and terrified all at once. Lisa would have liked Victoria. He thought she would have approved of someone who loved their kids so fiercely, who was willing to learn, who showed up even when it was hard. And for the first time since Lisa died, David felt like it was okay to move forward, to want something for himself, to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was room in his life for more than just survival. There was room for joy, for connection, for second chances, for love. He looked up at the stars, whispered a thank you to Lisa, and let himself hope that the best parts of his story were still to come. The restaurant was to fancy. David realized that the moment he walked in. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, white tablecloths covered every surface. A man in a suit asked for their reservation like he was guarding the gates of heaven beside him. Mia tugged on his sleeve. Dad, this place is weird. Why are there so many forks? David was about to turn around to suggest they go get pizza instead, when he saw Victoria walking toward them. Lily was beside her, wearing a purple dress that matched the butterflies in her room. Victoria looked nervous. She had clearly put effort into this. Her hair was down in soft waves. She wore a blue dress that wasn't quite as formal as her work clothes, but wasn't casual either. When their eyes met, she seemed to realize the same thing he did. This was too much, too formal for a first date with two 8-year-olds in tow. I think I made a mistake, Victoria said when she reached them. This place is really fancy, David finished with too many forks. Victoria laughed. It was a real laughter, kind that made her whole face light up. Should we go somewhere else, please, Mia said. I want chicken nuggets. Lily nodded enthusiastically. Me too. They ended up at a diner 3 blocks away, vinyl booths, and a jukebox in the corner, a laminated menu with pictures of every item. The girls immediately started coloring on the paper placemats. The waitress brought over. Victoria slid into the booth across from David. This is better, she said. Much better, he agreed. The conversation flowed easier than David expected. They talked about work and school and the girls' soccer league that Victoria had signed Lily up for. They talked about the small victories of the past few weeks, how Lily had stopped crying at bedtime, how she had made a friend at school. Victoria had successfully braided her hair for the first time. It was harder than it looks. Victoria Sadai watched 7 YouTube videos. Sit still came out. Crooked Mia looked up from her coloring. My dad is terrible at braids, too. He always makes them too tight, and they give me a headache. David felt his face get warm. Did Mia agreed, but you're better at other things? Like making grilled cheese and telling bedtime stories and being the best dad ever? David caught Victoria's eye. She was smiling at him something in her expression made his heart skip. After dinner, they walked to a nearby park. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in oranges and pinks. The girls ran ahead to the playground. David and Victoria followed at a slower pace. Was nice, Victoria said, all of it, not just dinner but everything. The last few months, getting to know you, getting to be. She paused, searching for the right word. Less alone, I know what you meant. David said they found a bench with a view of the playground, close enough to watch the girls, but far enough to talk without being overheard. Can I ask you something? Victoria said, of course. Do you ever feel guilty? She was looking at her hands, for wanting to be happy again, for wanting to move, and David felt something tighten in his chest. He knew exactly what she meant. Every day, he admitted, especially at first, every time I laughed or enjoyed something, I felt like I was betraying Lisa, like I was forgetting her. Victoria nodded. My sister would want me to be happy. I know that. She always said I worked too much, that I needed to live more, but still it feels wrong sometimes to be sitting here on a date when she's gone. Is that what this is? David asked gently. Date? Victoria finally looked at him. Her eyes were bright. Hope some too, he said. Undie. I think the people we lost would want this for us. They would want us to find joy again. Lisa used to tell me that life was too short to spend it alone, that love was the only thing that really mattered. Victoria was quiet for a moment, watching Lily and Mia going down the slide together. My sister said something similar, she said. I was too afraid of getting hurt that I built walls to keep everyone out, but the walls just made me lonely. Are you still afraid, David? Asked terrified. Victoria admitted, but I'm trying not to let that stop me anymore. Me too. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the girls play. The park was starting to empty as families headed home for bedtime routines. Dad, Mia called from the playground. Can Lily's sleepover, please? Lee was looking at Victoria with hopeful eyes. Victoria glanced at David. Is that okay? Mean, do you think it's too soon? I don't know what the rules are for this. David smiled. I don't think there are rules. We are making this up as we go. So is that a yes? Victoria asked. The girls were both watching, now waiting for an answer. Sure, David said. Why not? The girls cheered and went back to playing. Victoria let out a breath. I'm going to mess this up, she said. The parenting, the dating, all of it. Him going to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, and everyone messes up. David interrupted. The trick is to mess up together, to be patient with each other too. Remember, we're all doing the best we can. Victoria reached over and took his hand. Her fingers were cold. When did you get so wise? I didn't, David said. Just good at pretending. They both laughed. It felt good, as he natural like. Maybe this could work. Like maybe they could build something new from the broken pieces of their old lives. The sleepover was chaos. In the best way, the girls wanted to watch movies and eat popcorn and stay up as late as possible. They built another fort in the living room. David and Victoria sat on the couch outside the fort, passing a bowl of popcorn back and forth occasionally, telling the girls to keep it down. At one point, Victoria leaned her head on David's shoulder. He froze for a second, then relaxed. It felt right. Is this okay? She whispered. Yeah, he said. This is perfect. Around midnight, the girls finally fell asleep. Their movie still playing quietly on the TV. David stood to turn it off, but Victoria caught his arm. Wait, she said. Can we just sit here for a minute? They sat in the dim light of the television, the two girls asleep in their blanket, for everything quiet and peaceful. Never thought I could have this. Victoria sighed. Family, someone to share the hard parts with, someone who understands. David understood completely. After Lisa died, he thought that part of his life was over, that he would spend the rest of his days just being Mia's dad, that romance and partnership and love were things that belonged to his past. But sitting here with Victoria, with their daughters sleeping peacefully nearby, he realized he had been wrong. Life didn't end when you lost someone. It changed, became different, but it could still be good. It could still be full. I should probably go, Victoria said reluctantly. Let you get some sleep, or you could stay, David said, then quickly added, on the couch. Mean we have extra blankets? Unless that's weird, then you should definitely go. Victoria smiled. It's not weird, I'll stay. They set up the couch with pillows and blankets. Victoria borrowed an old t-shirt of David's to sleep in. When she came back from the bathroom, David tried not to stare. She Looked different without makeup, younger more, vulnerable, more real. Thank you, she said, for tonight, for all of this, for taking a chance on someone who had no idea what they were doing. We both had no idea. What we were doing, David said, still don't really, but we're figuring it out. Victoria stepped closer. They were standing in the hallway, the house quiet around them. Can I kiss Yoshe? Asked David. Felt his heart racing. Yahi, said Yasu Kanta. Kiss was soft, gentle, little awkward because they were both out of practice, but it was perfect when they pulled apart. Victoria was smiling. They'd been wanting to do that for weeks. She admitted, me too. David said they stood there for a moment longer, neither wanting to break the spell then. Victoria yawned. David laughed. Bedtime, he said, for both of us. They said goodnight. David went to his room, but couldn't sleep. His mind was racing, replaying the kiss, thinking about what came next. He heard his door creak open. Mia stood in the doorway. Can't sleep either, she asked. Come here, David said, patting the bed beside. Mia climbed in, snuggling. Clothes the way she used to when she was little. Do you like her? Mia asked Victoria. David thought about lying about, saying it was complicated, but Mia deserved honesty. He said I. Doi said Mia was quiet for a moment. I think Mom would like her, she said I. Think Mom would want you to be happy? David's throat got tight. I think so too, and I like Lily, Mia continued. She's nice, she's quieter than me, but that's okay. We balance each other out. They lay there in the dark, father and daughter, navigating this new territory. Together, Mia said sleepily, Yar, we going to be a family like all four of you see. Don't? No, Davis said. Honestly, Mobby, would you want that? Mia nodded against his shoulder. Yeah, it would be nice to not be the only kid anymore. To have someone who gets. It's someone who knows what it's like when things are hard. They fell asleep like that. David woke a few hours later to find Mia had gone back to her own room. The house was still quiet. He got up and peeked into the living room. Victoria was asleep on the couch, one arm hanging off the side, her hair messy. She looked peaceful. The fort was still standing. Could see both girls curled up inside, fast asleep. This was his life now, messy and complicated and full, so different from what he planned, but maybe better, maybe exactly what he needed. The next morning, David woke to the smell of pancakes. He came downstairs to find Victoria in the kitchen. She had found his apron and was flipping pancakes while Lily and Mia sat at the table, apparently not very well. Victoria said when she saw him, but the girls say they don't mind if they're a little burnt. David took over pancake duty while Victoria made coffee. Moved around each other icily like they had done this 100 times before. After breakfast, Victoria and Lily had to leave. Lily had a doctor appointment as they were getting ready to go. Victoria pulled David aside last night. Washi started perfect. David finished. She smiled. I was going to say, terrifying, but perfect works too. When can I see you again? How about tomorrow? David said we could take the girls to the aquarium. Victoria's face lit up. They would love that. As David watched them drive away, Mia came to stand beside him. She's really bad at pancakes, Mia said. Arable. David agreed, but she tried, and that's what matters. Mia nodded wisely. That's what you always say because it's truth. They went back inside. The house felt too quiet now, too empty. David realized he had gotten used to the noise, to having more people around, to not being alone. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Thank you for last night, for being patient with me, for making me believe I could do this, all of it. David smiled and typed back. You for taking a chance, for letting me in, for reminding me that life can still surprise you in good ways. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a routine, dinners together twice a week, weekend activities with the girls, coffee every morning before work. David met Victoria's friends from work, professional people who were clearly shocked to see their boss in jeans, holding hands with an IT guy, but Victoria didn't seem to care what anyone thought. She was different now, softer, more open, more willing to be vulnerable. Victoria met David's friends too, the other parents from MI's school, his co-workers from the basement. Everyone could see the change in him, how he smiled more, how he seemed lighter, less burdened by the weight of doing everything alone. One evening, they were having dinner at Victoria's house. The girls were playing upstairs. Victoria and David were cleaning up the kitchen. She was washing dishes. He was drying. It was domestic and simple, and exactly what David wanted. "Can I tell you something?" Victoria said. She wasn't looking at him. Her hands were in the soapy water of course I love you, she said it quickly like ripping off a bandit. "I know it soon. I know we are still figuring this out, but I don't love you, and I love me on. I needed you to know." David set down the dish he was drying. He turned Victoria to face him. Her hands were still wet, dripping on the floor. "I love you too," he said. "You've been afraid to say it, afraid. It was too fast, afraid you weren't ready, but I do love you." They kissed right there in the kitchen with dish soap everywhere. The girls came running down a minute later, asking for snacks, completely oblivious to the moment they had interrupted, but it didn't matter. The moment was theirs. The words were sedaned. Everything had changed again, the best possible way. That night, after Victoria and Lily went home, David sat on his back porch again, looking up at the stars. He thought about Lisa, about the life they had planned together, the life that ended too soon. Would always love her, always miss her, but he was learning that the heart was big enough for both, big enough to hold grief and joy at the same time, big enough to honor the past while building a future. He pulled out his phone and opened his photos. Found the picture of Lisa. He kept their shit. Was smiling, laughing at something he had said. "God, I miss you," he whispered. "But I think I'm going to be okay. I think we're all going to be okay." The wind picked up, moving through the trees, and for just a second David felt like Lisa was there, telling him it was okay to move forward, to love again, to be happy. He closed his eyes, said goodbye one more time, not to her memory, but to the guilt, to the fear, to the belief that his best days were behind him. When he opened his eyes, he felt lighter, freer for whatever came next, because he wasn't alone anymore. He had Victoria. He had Lily. He had a future that looked nothing like he planned, but everything like what he needed, and that was more than enough. Was everything. 6 months later, David stood in Victoria's kitchen making breakfast. It was Sunday morning, and the house was quiet, except for the coffee maker bubbling in the corner. He had started keeping a toothbrush. Here's some clothes in the guest room, little pieces of his life migrating into hers. The girls were still asleep upstairs. They had stayed up late watching movies the night before, building yet another blanket for eating too much popcorn. Being kids, David smiled, thinking about it, how Mia and Lily had become inseparable, how they finished each other's sentences, how they fought like real sisters and made up 5 minutes later. "Arms around you, Victoria," said, wrapping herself around him from behind. Her hair was messy from sleep. She wore one of his old t-shirts. "Morning," he said, turning to kiss her. "Coffee's almost ready." Victoria hummed and rested her head against his back. "I could get used to this," she said, waking up with you here every morning. David felt his heart speed up. They had been dancing around this conversation for weeks about what came next, about making this official, making this permanent. "Me too," he said. They stood there for a moment, comfortable in the silence. The coffee finished brewing, and Victoria poured them both cups. They sat at the kitchen table, the morning sun streaming through the windows. "I need to tell you something," Victoria said. She looked nervous. "Okay," David said, his own nerves starting to kick in. "The company wants to promote Mesh," said regional director. "It would mean more responsibility, more travel, more everything." David felt his stomach drop. He tried to keep his face neutral. "That's amazing," he said. "Congratulations." "I turned it down," Victoria said. "We quicked it." "What we?" "Because it would mean being gone 3 weeks out of every month, flying 2 different offices, never being home, and I finally have a home. I have Lily, I have you and me, I have a life that matters more than a title." David didn't know what to say. "Doria, you shouldn't give up opportunities because of me." "I'm not," she said firmly. "I'm choosing. There's a difference. I've spent my whole life chasing the next promotion, the next achievement, thinking that would make me happy, but it never did. This makes me happy. You make me happy." David reached across the table and took her hand. "Love you," he said, "but I don't want you to have regrets. The only thing I would regret is missing Lily's childhood, missing moments with you, missing out on this life we are building." She paused. Besides, I told them I would only stay on if they let me work remotely 4 days a week from home, 1 day in the office. They agreed. "So really everyone wins?" David laughed. "Of course you negotiated. You are a CEO. It's what I do," Victoria said with a smile. Then Her expression turned serious. But there is something else we need to talk about, where this is going. What we want for all of us, David. I've been thinking about the same thing the girls asked me last week when Lily was moving in with Yuge. Said I didn't know what to tell them. What did you say? That it was complicated, that we were taking things slow, making sure everyone was ready, Maya told. Me, I was being dumb. Victoria laughed. She's not wrong. We are basically living together. Already just split between two houses. I know, David said, but I wanted to make sure that you were sure that this was what you really wanted. She looked at him with those eyes that at first seemed so cold, but now were warm, full of love, full of certainty. I want to wake up with you every morning, she said. I want to go to sleep next to you every night. I want to raise our girls together. I want to be a family, not just people who date, not just people who care about each other. Real family. David's throat was tight. I want that too, then. Let's do it, Victoria said. Move in here, all of you. We have the space. The girls already share a room half the time anyway. We can figure out the logistics, but I want you here with me where you belong. David thought about his house. One he had shared with Lisa, where Mia was born, where they had built a life together. It was full of memories, good ones, but it was also full of ghosts. Maybe it was time to build something new. Okay, he said. Juice, let's do it. Victoria broke into a huge smile. She jumped up and kissed him, nearly knocking over both their coffee cups. We are really doing this, she said. We are really doing this. He confirmed. The girls are going to lose their minds. Came downstairs 20 minutes later, sleepy and rumpled, asking for pancakes. David and Victoria exchanged a look. Should we tell them now? Victoria mouthed. David nodded. Girls, Victoria said, sit down. We need to talk to you about something. Both Mia and Lily froze. Their faces showed panic, the kind of panic kids get when adults say, we need to talk. Are you breaking up? Mia asked, her voice small. What? No, David said quickly. The opposite, actually. We want to talk about all of us living together. Lily looked at Victoria like, here, use. Victoria said David and Mia would move in with Uzwi, would all be under one roof, eh? Family. Lily turned to Mia, her eyes wide. Would you want to? Are you kidding? Mia practically shouted. Izwin, can we move? How soon can I pick which drawer I get? The girls started talking over each other, planning and excited, making lists of what needed to happen. David and Victoria just watched, letting them have this moments of. Victoria whispered, everyone is sure the next few weeks were a whirlwind. David had to figure out what to do with his house. They decided to rent it out, keep it as an investment, but also as a safety net just in case. Avon, though neither of them thought they would need it. Packing was emotional. David found things he had forgotten about, letters Lisa had written him, photos from their wedding, IA's baby clothes. He sat on the floor of the bedroom he had shared with his wife, surrounded by boxers, wondering if he was doing the right thing. Victoria found him there. She didn't say anything, just sat down next to him. I feel like him erasing her, David said, by leaving this house, by moving on. You're not erasing her, Victoria said gently. You're honoring her by living, by being happy, by giving Mia the family she deserves. Lisa is part of your story, part of Mia's story. Nothing changes that, but you get to write new chapters too. David leaned into her, let himself be held, let himself grieve and hope at the same time. Moving day was chaos, boxes everywhere. The girls running around. Mrs. Chen came over with food some of David's co-workers helped carry furniture. Victoria hired movers for the big stuff. By evening everything was in the house. Looked like a tornado had hit it, but it was theirs, all of theirs. That night they ordered pizzas on the floor in the living room because the couch was buried under boxers. The girls were exhausted, happy already, planning how to decorate their shared room. This is crazy, David said, looking around at the mess. Completely crazy, Victoria agreed, but good crazy. The best crazy. They got the girls to bed around 9, then spent another hour unpacking essentials, finding pajamas and toothbrushes and phone chargers. When they finally collapsed into bed, Victoria turned to David. We're really doing this, she said for like the 10th time that day. We really are, he confirmed him, terrified. She admitted. Me too, David said, but also really happy. Me too. They fell asleep, tangled together, exhausted, happy home. The first few weeks were an adjustment, learning to share space, figuring out morning routines with 4 people instead of to navigating disagreements about everything from dinner menus to bedtime mess. There were hard moments, times when the girls fought, when David and Victoria disagreed about parenting decisions when the house felt too small, too loud, too much. But there were more good moments. Mia teaching Lily to ride a bike, Victoria braiding both girls' hair before school, David making pancakes every Sunday. 4 of them curled on the couch watching movies, game nights that got too competitive inside, jokes that only the 4 of them understood. One evening, about a month after the move, Victoria called a family meeting. Everyone. Grown family meetings usually meant chores or rules or something boring, but Victoria looked serious, so they all gathered in the living room. "What's wrong, Mia?" asked. "Nothing is wrong," Victoria said, "but I wanted to talk about something important." She took a breath. "I want to adopt Mia." The room went completely silent. What David said, he wasn't sure he heard correctly. "I want to legally adopt Mia," Victoria repeated, looking at him then. "At Mioni, if you both want that, only if you're comfortable with it. But I love Harry. Want to make it officially. Want her to know that she is my daughter, not just the girl who came with the package." Mia was staring at Victoria, her eyes filling with tears. "Want to be my mom, like? Really?" "My mom I already am. Your mom in my heart," Victoria said, her own voice shaking. "But you sigh. Want to make it Lagula? Want you to know that I'm not going anywhere, that you are mine. I am yours forever." Mia launched herself at Victoria, hugging her so tight Victoria almost fell over. "Yes," Mia said. "Yes. Yes, I want that too." David watched them, his daughter and the woman he loved, and felt something break open in his chest. Something that had been closed for so long. Victoria looked at him over Mia's head. "Is that okay?" she asked. "More than okay," David said, his voice rough with emotion that he couldn't finish, couldn't find the words. Lily came and sat next to David. "Does this mean Mia will really be my sister?" she asked. David said, pulling her close. "It does, Gul," Lily said. Then, very seriously, she added, "Does this mean you have to adopt me too?" "Make it fair." David looked at Victoria. She nodded. "Give us permission?" "If you both want that," David said to Lily. "Then you sigh?" "Would be honored to adopt you, to be your dad officially." Lily thought about it too already. "Are kinda my dad," she said. "You come to my school stuff, you help with homework, you make really good grilled cheese, so yeah, that would be good." Just like that, their family became official, not just in their hearts, but on paper. Legal process took months: background checks, home visits, court hearings, but eventually it was done. Mia became Mia Rivera Hartwell. Lily became Lily Hartwell Rivera, perfect blend of both families. The adoption party was small, just close friends and family. Mrs. Chen cried. The girls wore matching dresses. David and Victoria kept looking at each other, still amazed this was real. During the party, David found a quiet moment with Miyoshi. Was sitting on the back porch away from the noise. "You okay?" he asked, sitting beside her. "Yashi said, just thinking about." "What about Mamif? She can see this if she knows." David put his arm around Harry. "Think she doesn't. I think she is happy for us." "Really?" Mia asked, her voice small, relight. "David said her mom wanted you to be loved, to be happy, to have a family, and you have that. We all do." Mia leaned against him. "I still miss Harry." "No," David said, "I do too, every day, but I think we can miss her and still be happy. We can remember her and still move forward." "Is that okay?" Mia asked. "To be happy even though she is gonna more than okay to," said Ditz, what she would want. They sat there for a while, father and daughter, remembering the past, grateful for the present, hopeful for the future. Inside, they could hear Victoria and Lily laughing. Sounds of their family, their new life. Eventually they went back and rejoined the party. Mia ran off to play with Lily. David found Victoria in the kitchen. She was standing by the window watching the girls. "Hey," he said, wrapping his arms around her. "Hey, yourself?" She leaned back into him. "Con, you believe this is our life?" "Sometimes." "No," he admitted. "Sometimes I wake up and think I'm dreaming." "Me too," Victoria said. "But then I hear the girls fighting over the bathroom, or I step on a Lego, or I have to pack for lunches instead of one, and I know it's real." She turned to face him. "Thank you for what? For fixing my computer that day, for seeing past the Ice Queen, for teaching me how to be human again, for loving me, for giving me this family." David kissed her soft and sweet. "You gave me just as much," he said. "You reminded me that life isn't over, that I can have more than just survival, that I deserve to be happy. They are going to come looking for us, Soon Victoria said probably David. Agreed, but he didn't let go. They stood there in the kitchen there. Daughters playing in the next room, their friends and family celebrating around them. Life they had built from broken pieces. You, no Victoria, said we. Should probably set a date for what for. The wedding, she said, it casually like she was suggesting what to have for dinner, but David could feel his heart racing. Or you proposing to me Victoria. Smiled maybe's that. Okay, or did you want to be the one to ask? I don't care who asks David Sadazlong. As the answer is yes, then yes, Victoria said, let's get married, let's make this official in every possible way. Told the girls that night after everyone had gone home. After the house was quiet again, both Mia and Lily screamed with excitement. Can we be flower girls? Lily asked. Can we help plan it? Mia added. Can we get a dog? Wait, what David said? How did we get to a dog? Because families have dogs, Mia said. Like, it's the most obvious thing in the world, and we are a family, so we should get a dog. Victoria and David looked at each other. Way dog, Victoria said. Why not? David laughed. Why not? Indeed, the wedding was 6 months later. Small ceremony in their backyard, just family and close friends. The way friends though, carrying dresses, again carrying flowers, looking so grown-up. David wanted to cry. Victoria wore a simple white dress, her hair down, no corporate armor, no queen mask, just her, beautiful and real. And as David wore a suit, nothing fancy, but Mia had helped him pick out a Taiwan with little stars on it because you shine, Dad, she had said, making his heart swell. They wrote their own vows. Victoria went first, her voice steady, despite the tears in her eyes. I never thought I could have this, she said, a family home, someone who sees me, not the CEO, not the businesswoman's, just me. You gave me that, David, you, and me, you taught me that it's okay to be imperfect too, make mistakes, to be vulnerably, showed me what love really means. It's not about having all the answers. It's about showing up every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. He promised to keep showing up, to keep loving you, to keep being present for you, for our girls, for this beautiful, messy, complicated, perfect life we have built forever. David had written his vows on a piece of paper, but when the time came, he didn't. I knew what he wanted to say. Lisa taught me how to love. He said on, when I lost her, I thought that part of my life was over. I thought I would spend the rest of my days just being a dad, just surviving, just getting through. But then I met you, and you reminded me that the heart is big enough for both, big enough to honor the past while building a future, big enough to hold grief and joy at the same time. You didn't replace what I lost, you added something new, something I didn't know I needed. You gave me hope, you gave me a partner. You gave Mia a mother, you gave us a family. I promised to love you, to support you, to be your partner in all things, to raise our girls together, to build this life with you one day at a time, one moment at a time. Forever there wasn't a dry eye in the backyard. Even the girls were crying happy tears, the kind that come from witnessing something beautiful. They were pronounced married, kissed. While everyone cheered, the girls ran up and hugged them both, 4 of them standing there. A family complete. The reception was in the same backyard, tables set up, lights strung between trees, music playing, dancing, laughter, joy. David danced with Victoria, then with Mia, then with Lily. Victoria did the same. They went and took a family photo, 4 of them smiling, happy together. Later that night, after the guests had left, after the girls were asleep, David and Victoria sat on the back porch, now husband and wife. We did it, Victoria said. We really did it, built a family, found each other, made it work against all odds. David pulled her close. Best decision I ever made, fixing your computer that day, best malware infection ever. Victoria laughed. Only you would call a virus romantic. It brought us together, David said. So, yeah, romantic it. They sat under the stars talking about everything and nothing about the future. They would build the memories. They would make the life they would share inside the house. Their daughters slept safe, loved, part of something bigger than themselves. Was what David had needed all along, not to forget the past, but to make peace with it, to honor what was while embracing what could beat, to understand that endings and beginnings could coexist, that love didn't run out. It multiplied, it grew, it transformed. He thought about that day in Victoria's office when he was just an IT guy fixing a computer when she was just a CEO who didn't know how to be human, how a single momenta, single conversation, a single question can, "You helped me," had changed everything life. It was funny that way you never knew when everything would shift, when the person you were meant to find would walk into your life, when broken pieces would fit together into something whole. David looked at Victoria, the woman who had started as a stranger, become a friend, then a partner, now his wife. "I love you," he said. "I love you too," she replied, then added with a smile, "Ev, if you are terrible at making pancakes, huh?" he protested. "Damn, getting better," Victoria kissed him. "You are," she agreed. "At pancakes, at being a husband, at everything." They went inside, checked on the girls one more time, both sleeping peacefully, then went to their own room, their home, their life. And David realized something he had spent so long thinking happiness was behind him, that his best days were over, but he had been wrong. The best days were right now and tomorrow and all the days after that, with this family, this love, this beautiful, complicated, messy, perfect life. He fell asleep next to his wife's grateful content home. Every sense of the word, and somewhere, maybe among the stars, maybe in a place beyond understanding, he liked to think. Lisa was smiling, proud of the father. He had become happy that he had found love again, glad that Mia had a mother, that he had a family, that he had allowed himself to live, not just survive, but truly live. The sun rose on their first day as a married couple. House was quiet for exactly 10 minutes, then the girls were up loud, demanding breakfast, fighting over the bathroom being kids. Victoria groaned and buried her face in the pillow. "This is our life now, Shay,"
said David, laughed, and got up.
"Yep, this is our life, and I wouldn't change a single thing." He went downstairs to make pancakes, slightly burnt ones, while his wife got ready, while his daughters argued, while his family, his beautiful, blended, perfectly imperfect family, started another day together. And that was everything. That was enough. That was home.